Welcome back to Making Records with Eric Valentine. That's me. So this one, as you can see from the title, is all about the moment when the wiring was really done, and it still looks kind of bizarre because all the wiring is finished well before all the walls and everything. So there's still no sheetrock. It's all just open wood framing everywhere, but the wiring is really done at this point. There'll be a few things, things that need to be terminated and stuff here and there. But man, it's all in. Anything that needs to be run through the walls is in, and that's it. So not long after this, they started sheetrocking everything, and so I do that, and it was an opportunity to kind of like go over just the whole concept of how this studio is set up with the wiring, the control room, the cameras, and visual contact with artists and stuff in the building. Like some of this I've already talked about. I apologize. There's some repetition of what's going on, but in this video, I kind of go through everything. It's a long, it's about 20 minutes of me just in that control room, talking through the patch bay, the whole thing. So you can really kind of get the whole vision for how this place is set up. So here it is. Check it out. Hey everybody, this is a little update on the studio build and wiring progress. I've been back here in Vermont for a couple weeks now, and been working intensely on finishing all the audio wiring before the walls get closed up. You can see that, everything is still, there's no walls anywhere. But it's the best time to do it because I can run a bunch of the wiring, through the walls. It's still cold. It's April. It just snowed last night, so it's cold in here. I got my ski jacket on. So we actually started putting the racks together. You can see them back there, and I'm standing what's going to be the control room. And what's going to happen is, let me see. I'm going to turn this camera around. There'll be 3 racks over here, which are going to be what I call the compressor racks, which will be, this one here, this one there, and then this one, which is missing a bunch of stuff. So those 3 are going to go over here. There'll be 2 racks over here that are going to have a bunch of mic preamps. Here's one of those. The other one is actually set up in the basement of the house because I have a temporary thing going over there. There'll be 2 racks over here. There's going to be a countertop on top, and my beloved RCA console will sit on top of those. And then in the front will be EQ racks. I decided to not have a bunch of racks like in the middle of the room and have sort of a credenza in the middle of the room. I just find it sort of obstructive, and I have to turn around, to get at any of the controls and make adjustments to anything. I think I'd rather have them up at the front of the room between the speakers. I think either way, I'm sort of moving out of the sweet spot. You have to sort of make adjustments and then get back to sort of listen to what happened. It's just the way it is when you're working with outboard gear. So then in the front, it'll be EQ racks. I'm experimenting with some newer stuff. These are all the sort of inductor-based 500 series things. I have to say, I particularly enjoy these. These are kind of the winner. With the bit that I've been able to play around with them so far. And then here's more of the EQ stuff that's going to be at the front of the room. Is there another one? Oh yeah, and then this over here. This is some of my Langevin stuff. MPQ1. There'll be a couple of those in there, of course, and then there'll be one that has the power amp for the Strauss monitors and all that. So the control room is sort of, at least kind of getting pieced together so we can start really checking out the wiring runs. And the wiring for this has been very interesting. I'm reusing, I guess not even recycling, just reusing all of the cable that I pulled out of Barefoot. And so you can see this stuff all strewn about, and they're all like Mogami 24 pair. I mean, I bought a mountain of that stuff when I wired up Barefoot, and it's now probably, 3 times as expensive. The price has gone up so much on all of this stuff. It's also almost impossible to get. So I'm actually really grateful that I chose this path. It was, partly just because I didn't want to have to buy it all again. And like, I'm actually really starting to feel it. This whole, save the planet thing is super real. And it's one thing to have people tell you that you need to do it, and it's another thing when you actually really feel it. And I really feel it now. Anytime I throw something in a garbage can, I'm just like, I don't want to contribute to this anymore. And so I'm reusing all this stuff, and it was a really complicated puzzle because I had all of these pre-existing lengths of Mogami 24 pair cable that were terminated all kinds of different ways, either with EDAC connectors, 90 pin EDAC connectors, or some of them have all these breakouts, and it was more or less going to be somewhat plug and play, but there were specific places where things were going to inevitably need to be different. And so I had to sort of map out what cable would be the right length that had the closest configuration to the connectors that I needed, how it was going to be connected here. These are the main racks. The big revelation here was to have the machine room on an adjoining wall. So I have these open frame racks that are basically part of the wall. So I have totally just unobstructed access to the back of these racks anytime I need it. Oh man, Ken's gonna kill me for even showing this at this stage. Ken Miller's the person that is helping me with all this wiring. I can show you a little bit of his more, when something looks finished. That's what Ken does right there. It's a work of art, and this is obviously in progress right now, in process. And he uses all of these cable ties that have the little tab so you can release them. So he kind of roughs things in and uses the tabs to hold things in place temporarily, and then ultimately, all that stuff will get replaced with permanent cable ties. We cut off the ends and stuff. And so he's still just getting a handle on trying to dress all of this stuff and have good service loops so patch bays can get pulled out if they need to. Because some of the lengths, because we're reusing cable, it was tricky getting some of the lengths to really line up the way we needed to. But so, all the cables from the patch bays and stuff will come down. I have to finish building this trough here. This is going to be a trough that encircles the room because I didn't want to have to cut into the floor or have a floated floor. It's not a hugely high ceiling in here. And if I floated a floor in here, I just lose a little bit more of the air volume in the room. And, I don't want it to feel too claustrophobic in here. And so the wiring trough is started. All the wire from, the patch bays and various stuff will come in here, run around the perimeter of the front of the room. Basically everything in the room that needs to have something connected to it, it's all in the front of the room. And so it can all just run around the front of the room and feed out from the trough and go connect to all the gear that's in the front of the room. The rest of the room is just going to be space for people to hang out or whatever, or observe. This control room, theoretically it's going to be used for doing making records, in-person stuff in this room. So I'll be set up here. There's going to be a bunch of screens here. There'll be 4 large screens here, so large screens so people further back can see what's going on. I'm going to have my own little sort of moving workstation. And I brought the one that I built in Topanga here. And in this setup, it's actually going to be on wheels so I can move it around. And so it's tiny, it's perforated, so there's no reflections that come off it. But I'll have my own little monitor that sits low to try and reduce the reflections off of it. And then just enough space to hold a keyboard, a trackball, and I'm going to be using this SPL MTC monitor controller for this setup. And actually, I saw on their website they have a Mark II coming out, so I'm eagerly awaiting to see what what they're doing with that one, because I've had a couple realizations just in the last couple days where I discovered that, wow, I don't have any way to feed TalkBack to speakers in the sound rooms. And so Right now, with this, with the monitor controller that I'm using, there is no real accommodation for sound room monitoring, for speakers in the sound rooms, and there's two in this case. This is the smaller sound room here, and then of course back here there's this huge cavernous room that's coming along a little bit. This is the huge cavernous sound room. I can't wait to record something in this room. It's going to be amazing. And so you can see some of the destinations where all the wiring shows up. I finished all of this stuff in this past week. So this is a Redco panel. I've been really happy with their stuff. It took them a while because I placed orders for all this custom stuff right after they moved their whole facility, and everybody's sort of struggling with this supply chain stuff, and so it took time, but it was okay. It ended up not really affecting anything because everything got delayed in my world. Trying to sell a building and all kinds of nutball stuff going on. And so, but these came out beautiful. They really did a wonderful job, and their whole system for just like designing the panels through a web browser-based design tool works amazing and super easy. Just throw it together and it just shows up looking great with all the connectors in it, ready to go. So, I just soldered all my stuff on. So this thing's got 16 channels of proper, Mogami balanced shielded cable for 16 of these. And then on all of these, I'm having just extra of these Cat 6 style mic breakout boxes that will show up here. So if I do need more mic inputs, I can always add more with these. And I've been using them in Topanga, and they work. They actually work. So it's cool. It's just an easy way to have more stuff to grab from. Now I'm always incorporating a couple of tie lines that go from the control room into the sound room, and are, have the proper gender to do that. Because I'm running into it more and more now that I'm using stuff like the GB tracker, where I want to send signal back out from the computer to send to guitar amps through a reamp or something like that. I'm always having network connections, so I can have a hardwired network connection. I'm going to be recording a lot of stuff just by myself here, and I always use my laptop to screen share to the main computer. This is all headphone stuff. I use an Aviom headphone system. And then there's going to be camera and monitor connections everywhere because, there's actually no way for me to have a control room window into this space. So I'm going to have to use cameras and monitors. And so the vision is that I'm going to have these camera monitor rigs, that are like on casters that you can roll around, and there's a screen on. They have these things in hospitals now, and so doctors can be wheeled around to all these different rooms. They stay in one place with a camera and a monitor on them, and they get wheeled into a room, and they go, "Oh, how are you feeling today?" So that's basically what this is going to be. So wherever a musician is set up, I can wheel a camera and monitor up to them so they can see me, and I'll be able to see them. There's a camera on them that I can have fed into the control room. So it's all going to be done with these like weird robot, camera monitor things. I guess the future is here. And so I'm using this big HDMI switcher thing. And so you can basically route any incoming video signal to any monitor. And everything is getting hooked up to this. There's monitors all over the building. There's a bunch in the control room, like I described. There's 4 big ones, and then my smaller one that's right in front of me. And so that's what all this stuff is. These are all Cat 6 to HDMI conversion boxes, and so we can run these video signals either from cameras, and we have some SDI runs. So this is SDI signal coming in. So SDI to HDMI conversion, all of it ends up going to that HDMI switching matrix, and so everybody can see each other. That's the plan. I mean, you could even route it so if you had a camera on a drummer in the small room and had somebody playing out here, I could put the drummer's camera on the bass player's screen in this room, with that routing matrix. So a lot of flexibility there, and just being able to get everybody to see each other. So I'm excited about that approach. And so we're basically done. I mean, obviously there's a lot of cleanup and dressing, but from here, most of the stuff is just plug and play. There's going to be a huge amount of just DB25 interconnect stuff. You can see these are all DB25 patch bays that I also got from Redco. This whole bottom one's going to be a bunch of molts. They make a cool little adapter that you put on there that creates molts in the DB25 patch bays, and so a lot of this is just going to be connecting the DB25 patch bays to DB25 devices that still are in here. I have to put I've got a couple Antelope Orions. There's going to be a lot of A to D I/O in this setup. It was kind of staggering when I got there, but it's not wildly unaffordable. With stuff like this, these things sound great. I think I've talked about them before. Sound great, unbelievably affordable for what they do. And then I'm gonna use a couple of my HDX Avid HDX converters that are left over from Barefoot. I actually can't find them right now. I don't know where they are. They're lost here somewhere. I spent half a day trying to find them. I don't know where they are. So hopefully they turn up somewhere at some point. But yeah, so I got to put those in there. And then here's this. I'm switching to the Sigma for doing line level, level automation for my passive summing mixer. And so I'm going to be using this sort of final version of the passive summing mixer. It's actually 32 channels. It has like 16 stereo, or I suppose you could use a mono, but this thing is really set up to do more like stereo stems. And so yeah, that's going to be, the mixer. The console is essentially sort of created by the normalization in the patch bay. There'll be, tie lines from sound rooms here, inputs to mic preamps. I'm not doing the mic preamp in the room thing anymore. Just the mic preamps that I'm using now, and the way it's just not worth it. I'm moving on from that. It created kind of a big hassle, and I don't think it's a big enough difference for me to give up using more unique mic preamps in this space where I can actually be close to them. So I'm moving on from that. And so tie lines from the rooms, inputs to mic preamps, outputs from mic preamps, then inputs to an initial round of A to D conversion. So the outputs from the mic preamps go directly into the computer, and then out from the computer. It's kind of weird because I have these different types of patch bays. These patch bays are being reused from Barefoot. They're Bittree patch bays. These are all Redco DB25 patch bays, and I sort of, picked and chose, which one would be the easiest to interconnect for where it was being used. And so, like this one is just going to connect to a lot of DB25 stuff, so I put one of those there. They don't match up visually that great, but I can live with it. So then Thomas preamps, out of the preamps, into ADD conversion, out of ADD conversion, and then into all of my outboard equalizers here, and then out of all of the outboard EQs here, into all of the outboard compressors here, then out of all of the outboard compressors into tape machines. There's going to be my 16-track Scully machine and my Ampex MM1200. Probably set up as a 16-track because it's being set up as essentially a 32-channel console where through normalization there's a whole path that happens that has a mic preamp, an equalizer, and a compressor all in a row, and so it's all just created in the patch bay, and so then coming out of the compressors, it will go to inputs of the tape machines, output of the tape machines then into an additional round of A to D conversion. So I can be capturing the raw mic preamp version, as well as sort of a final EQ'd, compressed, tape machined, finished, like theoretically finished version of that signal. And the cool thing about it is like, I can do a little bit of processing on the raw mic, signal in the computer if I need to, before it goes to any of the other stuff, the hardware processing stuff. And at any point down the road, it's a very similar concept to the GB tracker, and I'm just sort of expanding that workflow into basically everything I record. Where at any point, if I want to EQ, compress, hit the tape machine differently on any track that I've captured, I have the raw digital, the initial digital raw mic preamp capture of that thing, and I can rerun it anytime. It really kind of takes the anxiety away when I'm tracking, because it doesn't. It needs to be close enough so everybody knows that it's going to work. But if I need to redo it, I can. So I'm not freaking out about that when I should be focusing on the song and people playing their parts right. So so that's basically how all this is going to work. It's all unlabeled, so it doesn't really look like much at this point. There's let's see. Here's all the documentation. These are the patch bay labels here, and then I have this whole wiring run list that's all color coded for stuff that Redco has done and things that we need to solder or crimp ourselves. And so it was a complicated puzzle figuring all this out, but it's finally coming together. And by the end of this period of time, we are ready, at least with the audio wiring, for these walls to get buttoned up. I caught a few important things. I mentioned the talkback stuff, sound room speakers. There was no wires that were run for speakers that would be in the sound room, and so I have those now. They're you can see that guy right there. That's going to be for a speaker that's mounted on the wall here. There's another one over here somewhere. Yeah, this one again, it's just reusing a cable. So I'll have to cut this length down, and then this is going to be a speaker dedicated just for talkback, which I'm going to need because of the monitor controller that I'm using. I caught that. I also realized I hadn't run any wire for my plate reverb, which is going to be upstairs. So that's going to get put in the walls, and so all of this wire will be, embedded in the walls, and it'll be just nice and clean. So, so yeah, we're ready. We're ready to button up these walls. We got to finish the plumbing. They're still working on that. There's some utility wiring that needs to be done. I'm going to meet with the master electrician next week on Tuesday, go over all the remaining stuff for that. You can see they've done some of it. You can see outlet boxes that have gone in. So kind of most of the stuff on this side of the building, upstairs and down, has been done. We really just got to finish in the big room and start putting in all the stuff for lighting fixtures and all of that. And then once plumbing and electrical is done, insulate, put up sheetrock, floors, doors, and then you kind of got a studio. So we're getting there. I'll see you soon. Bye. So there you have it. That really sort of covers the whole vision there. Once the walls got buttoned up is when I started to be able to work on the acoustics for everything, which is what I'm in the middle of right now. And so we'll be catching up to that soon. And then we'll be sort of in real time as I'm finishing this thing. So let's see what's next here. So episode 17, I made a quick reference to this in the previous RCA console when I started refurbishing the RCA console, but there was a high frequency issue with it, which wasn't necessarily bad. I just wanted to have a little more control over it. And so in this next episode, I really figured it out and pinned it down and was able to, get a little more control over what's going on there. So we'll be able to check that out more. RCA console fun in the next episode. All right, see you then. Bye.